For years, people-pleasing was one of those labels everyone used and almost nobody could define. In 2026, researchers finally gave the pattern a measure. But the real question is not what the score says. It is what your behavior keeps signaling. People-pleasing rarely announces itself as surrender. It looks like being helpful, easygoing, reliable, low-maintenance, endlessly understanding, and somehow always available when everyone else has already protected their own time. The signal is hidden inside the order of importance. Their comfort first, your limit later. That order can become so normal that self-erasure feels like kindness. You agree before checking your capacity. You apologize before deciding whether you did anything wrong. You explain a simple no until it sounds like a request for permission. On May 13, 2026, psychologist Christian Bla. Tiener published a study in Current Psychology that developed and validated a 10-item people-pleasing scale in 2 German samples.
The 2 pre-registered studies included 571 people in the first final sample and 1,323 in the second. The result was an initial research tool, not a clinical diagnosis.
The scale organized people-pleasing into 3 dimensions: responsibility for others, neglect of your own needs, and the expectations you believe other people place on you. Those 3 dimensions matter because they turn a vague label into 3 different questions. What do you believe you owe? What do you repeatedly abandon? And whose expectation is silently writing your answer before you speak? The first dimension is responsibility, not ordinary responsibility, not keeping promises. It is the feeling that another adult Eurostraid's mood, comfort, approval, or disappointment has somehow become your assignment. When that belief is active, a boundary feels less like information and more like negligence. Their frustration becomes evidence that you failed, even when your decision was reasonable, respectful, and necessary. The second dimension is neglect of your own needs. This is where the cost becomes visible. Your rest is postponed. Your work is interrupted. Your money, attention, and emotional space are spent before you have decided what you can actually afford. The third dimension is other people Eurostraid's expectations. Sometimes nobody has even demanded anything yet. You predict the request, predict the disappointment, and comply with a conversation that has only happened inside your head. You do not wait for pressure. You become the pressure. This is why people-pleasing is more complex than simply being nice. Kindness can be freely chosen. People-pleasing often carries an invisible invoice: safety, approval, belonging, relief, or the hope that no one will become upset with you.
The study also warns against easy conclusions. The concept came from lay psychology and self-help. The research was cross-sectional and the samples were German, with many students. It cannot prove why a person people-pleases or what intervention will change them.
That caution is important. A scale can organize a pattern without owning your identity. It can show tendencies without explaining your childhood, diagnosing your relationships, or deciding whether one generous act was healthy. It also cannot turn cultural interdependence into pathology. Families and communities differ in how they understand duty, care, sacrifice, and the self. Generosity is not weakness simply because it costs something. The sharper distinction is not whether you give, it is whether you can choose. Can you give without fear? Can you decline without building a legal defense? Can you care for someone without disappearing from your own decision? That is where boundaries enter the story. The research did not test boundaries as a treatment, but behaviorally, a boundary can act as the counter-signal to self-neglect and automatic obligation. People-pleasing says, your reaction determines my limit. A boundary says, my limit can survive your reaction. People-pleasing says, I must make this comfortable enough for you to accept. A boundary says, I will make this clear enough for both of us to understand. People-pleasing says, if you are disappointed, I did something wrong. A boundary says, disappointment can exist without becoming a verdict. This counter-signal is not aggression. It is not a slammed door, a silent treatment, or a performance designed to make someone chase you. Those moves still organize your behavior around controlling another person. A Eurostraid's response. A real boundary is fire. It names what you will do, what you will not do, or what access you can offer. Then it allows reality to answer without adding a speech every time discomfort appears. Start with a pause. Before answering a request, replace the automatic yes with one clean sentence. Let me check what I can commit to. That pause returns the decision to the person who has to live with the cost. Then locate the price. If I say yes, what becomes smaller? Sleep, focus, money, time with my family, recovery, another promise, or simple peace. A hidden cost controls you more easily than a named one. Next, separate care from capacity. You can understand why someone needs help and still be unable to provide it. Empathy describes what you see. Capacity describes what you can carry. They are not the same sentence. Then give the shortest, honest answer that preserves respect. I cannot take that on. I am not available tonight. I can help for 20 minutes, not 2 hours. I do not discuss that topic at work. A boundary becomes weak when every reason turns into a new place to negotiate. Over-explaining often feels polite because it gives the other person more context. But when you are seeking permission, every extra sentence becomes another opening through which your no can be cross-examined. You do not need to become robotic. Context can be kind. The test is whether the explanation serves understanding or whether it is trying to purchase immunity from someone else's trade's disappointment. Now watch the response. A respectful person may be disappointed and still accept the limit. An entitled person may treat your limit like a personal attack. A confused person may ask a question. Those are different signals. The boundary does not tell you everything about them. It gives you new data about the relationship. Can this connection hold two sets of needs, or does it only feel peaceful when one person disappears? At work, the pattern may sound like this. You finish your own task, absorb someone else's trade's emergency, and call yourself a team player while resentment quietly becomes the only part of you still telling the truth. The counter signal is specific. I can review this tomorrow morning, but I cannot take ownership tonight. You have not rejected the person. You have defined the shape of your contribution. In family life, the pattern may be older. You are the calm one, the mediator, the person everyone calls because you have trained the system to believe your capacity has no edge. The counter signal may be, I care about both of you, but I will not carry messages between you. That sentence returns responsibility without withdrawing love. In friendship, people-pleasing can look like permanent flexibility. Their schedule is real. Yours is adjustable. Their crisis deserves immediate attention. Your exhaustion is treated as a private inconvenience. The counter signal is reciprocity made visible. I want to see you, but that time does not work for me. Here are 2 times that do. No punishment, no test, no self-deletion. And in intimate relationships, the signal can become painfully subtle. You monitor tone, predict needs, soften every truth, and call the absence of conflict connection.
But peace that requires one person to remain unreadable is not evidence that the relationship is secure. It may only show that discomfort has been outsourced to the quieter person.
The counter signal is not brutal honesty. It is usable honesty. This matters to me. I felt dismissed when that happened. I want to solve it, and I will not pretend it had no effect. Notice what all these boundaries share. They do not accuse the other person of being toxic. They do not claim hidden motives. They describe capacity, behavior, and the conditions under which access continues. This matters because labels can become another way to avoid self-command. If you need the other person to be a villain before you are allowed to say no, you are still outsourcing permission. Sometimes the other person has done nothing cruel. Your limit is still real. A request can be reasonable, and your answer can still be no. 2 truths can occupy the same room without a trial. The difficult part arrives after the sentence. Your body may interpret the silence, the changed face, or the delayed reply as danger. The old pattern will offer immediate relief, explain more, reverse the decision, send another message. Do not confuse immediate relief with alignment. People-pleasing often lowers tension now by moving the cost into tomorrow. A boundary may raise tension now while preventing resentment, exhaustion, and false agreement later. This is the practice. Allow the discomfort to exist long enough for the new signal to remain visible. You can breathe, stay kind, and refuse to erect your limits simply because the room changed temperature. If you communicated harshly, repair the harshness. Do not automatically erase the boundary. You can say, my tone was sharper than it needed to be, but the limit itself still stands. That distinction is quiet power. Accountability does not require surrender. You can correct how you delivered the message without pretending the message had no right to exist. Over time, a boundary changes the data you collect about yourself. You learn that someone can be disappointed and you can remain safe. You learn that a relationship can survive honesty or reveal that it depended on your silence. You also learn that your worth does not rise every time you are useful. Usefulness can be valuable, but it is a role, not an identity. If usefulness is the admission price for belonging, rest will always feel like eviction. The deepest boundary is the one that separates who you are from what you provide. This is why the counter signal matters. A boundary tells other people that your kindness has structure. More importantly, it tells your own nervous system that connection no longer requires automatic self-abandonment. It will not guarantee respect. Some people will leave. Some will negotiate. Some will adapt. Some will reveal that they preferred access without responsibility. A boundary cannot control the answer. It makes the answer easier to see. The 2026 scale gives us a clearer language: responsibility for others, neglect of your own needs, and perceived expectations. Your daily behavior gives you the living measure, pause, capacity, choice, and a limit that can remain standing. If this pattern is familiar, do not ask whether you are officially a people pleaser. Ask a more useful question. Where does another person a Eurostrade as possible reaction keep outranking a need you already know is real? Choose one place, one request, one sentence. No dramatic reinvention. Quiet power is built when one honest limit survives the moment in which your old pattern expected it to collapse. Comment boundary if you are done treating every disappointment as proof that you failed. Subscribe to Quiet Power Code for calm self-command, clean standards, and social signals without manipulation theater. People-pleasing finally has a measure. But your most important measure may be simpler. Can your care remain generous without requiring you to disappear? When the answer becomes yes, the counter signal is already working.